Hi guys, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Python Django tutorial for you. And this time we're going to extend a little bit more into the user management side of things. Last time we looked at how to log in and how to log out. This time I'm going to take it a bit further and start and show you how to actually register users. So this is possibly going to be a bit shorter than my normal videos because it's not a very complicated thing, but I think they'll also lead us nicely into a future tutorial all to do with dealing with Django forms, which is something that is really helpful and help you to set up pages so that you can collect information from users and have them inserted into databases and be filtered and all sorts of wonderful things. So this subject in itself leads quite nicely into that, so I'm looking forward to moving on through into that, which we'll do possibly in the next tutorial. So this one is all about how do you register a user. Well, registration is just basically getting the information from the user off the web page and then bunging it in a database after you've validated it and made sure that it all matches and is correct. That's it in its simplest form. Very often registration processes can involve things like capture or recapture. They can also involve an extra step where you might send an email to the person who's tried to register with the site, and whilst you keep their data in the database, you don't actually make their account active until they follow a link that you send them through an email. We're not going to go to that extent this time round, but hopefully this should give you the beginnings of the idea of how to actually go about making that setup process and registration process on your own sites. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our URLs file, which is the main URLs file for our Django project. So inside of our Django project we have the main set, and inside of our URLs file here we're going to put in a couple of more URLs to handle the registration. And here you can see we've got the URLs from our last example, which is all to do with logging in and logging out and seeing whether your password's valid or invalid, etc. So we're just going to tack on two more on the end. These are accounts register and accounts register success. So this is what happens when your system says that the information that you've entered is correct and valid and your registration is complete. And as you can see, they pass through to some view functions that we're keeping inside of our main projects module: Django test views register user, and also register success. So just two views to handle the registration. Now, what's in a registration form? Well, we have a username and a password, and that's the very basic user registration details. It can be extended later on to include an email address, first name, last name, or address details, whatever you need from your user. And that's what we're going to cover in the example or the tutorial that I'm going to build about using Django forms, because this is possibly one of the most common ways that you'll see forms in action, other than obviously making comments on somebody's articles or a blog or something like that. This is one of the most common places you'll see forms in use in the registration process. So in the next lesson to do with that, I'm going to use this and extend it to include extra details other than just a username and a password. But for this basic tutorial, we're going to stick with that just so you can get the idea of how it works. So we've added these two URLs. We just need to go over to our views, and here we have all the views left over from when we were doing our login and logout. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in something brand new, and that's the user creation form. this is stored in Django contrib auth forms. So remember, we were using auth to do our authentication. Well, auth is a package, and it contains, amongst other things like functionality to log in and log out, a set of forms. There's not just this user creation form, there's a few other bits and bobs in there, and if you want to go and look that up on Google or whatever, feel free to do so, and you'll find that there's some already created forms that are really quite useful in just getting you set up and ready. But we're going to use this user creation form first. So how are we going to use it? Right, so we've got our register user URL that was set, and we're going to pass it through to this view named register_user. We're going to first of all look at the request object and see whether it has a method of post. So remember, in our forms we have methods for forms which are either post or get, and we're just basically checking, has this gone through a method or a process of being posted to. The first time round that should say no, because there's no data being posted from a form to this URL. In the second time round it should say post, and in that case we're going to then handle what happens when somebody posts some registration information through. And all we're really going to do is we're just going to take our user creation form and pass through the values in the post dictionary, and that should create us a form object. And in the process of all of that, it also should validate the form and say, is the information correct? So if it is correct, we're going to say, if the form is a valid form or correct, save the form, and that'll save our registration information for the new user. Dead simple. And then finally we're going to use the new class that we discussed in our last tutorial, just to use the HTTP response redirect over to the register success page. And that's what we are going to do if the information is correct from the user who wanted to register. So first of all, we've written some code, but this is code that's going to happen on the next time around for the user's experience. So what happens the first time that the user visits the register page? Well, we want to set up the register user page to have some information. Now, first of all, we want to make sure, for security's sake, that we've got our cross-site request forgery token stuck in there. So this is similar to the code you'll have seen in the last example. So we've got our cross-site forgery request forgery class, and then we're gonna pop in to the arguments dictionary a blank user creation form. Notice there's no post in its arguments, so this one is just a bog standard version of that form, and it has no information put in it to start with. It's just empty. It knows how to destroy or render rather its fields, but it doesn't know any data yet. And then we're just going to pass to render to response using the template register.html and these arguments that we've set up. So now that we've done that, let's have a quick look at what that register.html is. As usual, it's a template that extends from the base HTML, and we're going to override the content block again, and then we're going to just put in a form which has an action of passing information back to itself, to the register URL, using the post method, so that we can then track that and say, have we had information posted to us? Yes, we have. Our old friend, the CSRF token, which tells us this form's actually bona fide and from this website, and not been made up and sent from someone else who's trying to hijack the site. And then we have the actual form itself that we've passed through, and all we need to do is just insert it. it knows how to draw itself onto the page in HTML, so we don't need to mess around with any of that. And then finally we're just going to stick the register button on the end and close the form tag so that we know that that's the end of the form. Dead simple, no complicated things to do just yet. It might get a little bit more complex when we start actually extending forms in our forms tutorial, which comes next, but not much more complicated. But very, very simple, no messing about, very, very time consuming. Well, no, not very time consuming, rather. And that's pretty much it. So now that we've done the register view, all we need to do is put the registration success page in, and as with all the other ones, you saw the logout page, etc. All we do is we render response to register success.html, and that is just basically a page that goes overriding the base template again. You have registered, click here to log in again. Well, to log in anyway. So that being the case, that's pretty much our registration process fully set up. Now, like I said before, a lot of people like to have a little bit of an extra amount of security in there. So, possibly in this case, when you save this form, you may well choose to not have the user be fully active in the system. You might choose to send them an email to say, here's a link to click that to confirm that you really want to be registered or that you're human. So at this point you could extend that, but for the basics we're not going to do that. Next time we will, and then you'll see how that works. So very simple. Let's start up the web server, and then let's go to our URL. So notice we've gone to accounts register here, and if I just click refresh, the web server's up and running, and there you can see it's rendered its own fields for us in the form. It's also added an extra bit of information saying that this is required, and you need a password and a password confirmation. So I've already messed around, so I'm going to put test user 3 in because I've already created a few test users, and I'm going to write a password of something. Make sure they match, and then click register, and the winner is so it looks like we've registered. So then I could then log in as test user 3 using the password that I've set up, and there we are. The login process is already working. Probably not a great idea to have people fully active in a system unless it's okay and you don't think they can do any damage, or it's really important that you get them into the system and get them using your website straight away. Most people at least send out a confirmation email of some description, or even just put a checkbox on there to say that they agree to the terms and conditions of their website, something like that. Now, if we use our admin system, the Django admin system, we can log in as our super user, which is Mike for me. And if we go to the users table, we can now see that we've got a user there. And inside there, if we click through onto the user, we've got fields for the first name, last name, email address. It's currently ticked as active. If you want to disable somebody in the system because they've been a bit naughty and putting all sorts of stuff onto your forum or whatever on your website, then you can deactivate them by unticking that box and then just saving the information, and that means you haven't lost their email or address or anything like that, and you can send them a nice little email saying cut it out or I'm going to completely remove you from the site. And if they decide to behave, then you can reactivate them using that tick box again. Other little permissions that they can have are staff status, super user status. There's various groups you can add them to, and also in connection with the article package, the Django admin has already recognized that that package is in there, so it's got article, can add article, can change article, can delete article, and then you can add these permissions into the right hand window if you need to for that particular user. And finally, a bit of information about what date they joined, what time it was. Yeah, that's definitely the right time, 2 minutes ago. And the last time they logged in was a couple of minutes ago as well. So there you go. That's how you can register users with your system. Now, next time I'm going to take that a bit further and show you how to extend that so that you can actually, include an email address and the first name and last name in the whole registration process. But this should be enough to get you going. And I'm pretty sure that if you did a little bit more Googling yourself after looking at this video, you could probably go a bit further yourself. So if you manage to do that, feel free to leave some comments in the box below and let me know how you got on. I'm always interested in other people's experiences, after the lessons and how they get on with the information. So please leave us any comments you like. If this video was instructional and you learned something from this, please click the like button. If you want to see more in the series, please click the subscribe button. And if you have anything else that you want to say, or if you want to send me a nice love letter or whatever, I'll send a comment in the box below. Okay, thanks for watching.